This is a profoundly moving moment for me. Shechianu v'kimanu v'higianu. God is good to us. And as I said, I'm filled with gratitude that I have the privilege of being with you one more time as your senior rabbi on these holy days. It was not easy to decide what I would speak about tonight and on Kol Nidre. As I reflected on what has been most important to me over the years, I realized that there are two loves that come up again and again in my Holy Day sermons. My love of Israel and my love of the synagogue. While our world is so full of turmoil and there is so much to talk about, I hope you'll understand that my heart led me again to these two loves. Why? Because the future of Judaism is in the hands of the Jews of Israel and of America. To me, that's serious and good topics for the occasion. So my words to you these holy days are devoted to these two loves that hold the future of the Jewish people, the state and people of Israel, and synagogues like Beth Israel. Tonight, Israel. We hear in our media a lot about Israel, most of it negative. I once asked a student of ours if he had ever heard how Israel rescued the Jews of Ethiopia. No. How about the story of the Jews of the former Soviet Union? No. When we first started sending our 11th graders to Israel on the Linda and Shern Platt teen trip, which our federation helps fund, I learned that our teens didn't understand why Jews have their own state, and it didn't seem fair to them. Do you realize what's happened? Our children are growing up hearing a lot about Israel, but they don't know some of the greatest stories ever told. Stories about the ingathering of the Jews by the state of Israel and its extraordinary accomplishments in its first 70 years. These are among the most remarkable sagas of the human story, and our children don't know them. I realized that the teen trip to Israel had to help our teens understand why Jews have and deserve a homeland, and to help them fall in love with Israel. That has been my goal for our Platt trip and everything I've done here regarding Israel. I want to thank David Berk, a true Ohev Tzion, a lover of Zion, of Israel, so much so that that's where he is right now. But I thank him for chairing our Israel committee for several years now. And we are so grateful to Linda and Shern Platt, may Shern rest in peace, who with their trip that they have endowed for our synagogue youth has changed the lives of so many teens by helping them build a foundational love of Israel. I just think for us, if we understand what Israel means for the Jewish people and the world, our foundation will be Ahavat Zion, a love of Israel. That love does not blind us to Israel's flaws, not at all. But if you start from a place of love, you'll be a better and more discerning consumer of the news from Israel. And if you feel the need to criticize Israel, as I often do, it will be different because of the loving place it comes from. Judaism is very into rebuking the one you love. Tonight I want to tell you one more time why I love Israel. Israel has accomplished stunning achievements in science, medicine, water conservation, high tech, and so much more. Along with all the other things Zionism has produced that inspire my love, like a thriving economy, a vigorous and creative cultural scene, world-class cuisine, a population that is annually rated among the happiest, healthiest, and the best educated in the world. And despite being in a state of war since its birth, and even though not one of its founders grew up in a democracy, Israel has not experienced one day, without a flourishing democracy and an extraordinary free press. There are only 4 or 5 nations in Earth history that can make that boast. I remember Elie Wiesel expressing bewilderment that he lived long enough to see people deny the Holocaust. Here's what I can't believe that I've lived to see. How the longing of a tiny dispersed people and their yearning for a homeland, while suffering centuries of massacres and expulsions, culminating in history's largest mass murder, has become so repugnant and elicits such loathing from so many people in our world. It boggles the mind. Why do I love Israel? I love Israel because it is the nation Zionism created, that the Dalai Lama turned to with the most important question he ever asked. How does a people survive exile? He turned to representatives of the only people in human history to have ever sustained their dream of return and see its fulfillment. That's the state Zionism created. I love Israel because after 1,000 years of relying on others to take care of us, to provide us safety, we Jews decided to take responsibility for ourselves. When orphaned Jewish children arrived on the beaches near Haifa, after surviving the hell of the death camps, every single terrified child was greeted with a smile and a hug. Don't you worry now. You're safe. Here's a blanket. Welcome home. I love Israel because of the way Jewish values are found in the heart and soul of Israel. If you want to be a medic in the IDF, you have to swear that you will treat everyone, friend or foe, in all conditions. As one mother of a medic wrote, Israel teaches our sons and daughters to heal, not to hate, to love life, not seek death. Not long ago, a Palestinian cab raced toward the entrance of a Jewish settlement, carrying a Palestinian woman in her 20s, in advanced stages of labor, and facing a life-threatening situation. The umbilical cord was wrapped around the baby's neck. IDF soldiers and paramedics saved both the mother and the baby. This took place a few yards away from where people were sitting Shiva for a Jewish baby murdered the day before by a Palestinian terrorist. Not one Jew wondered for a fleeting moment what the right thing to do was, even through their veil of tears. I love Israel because of the father who, when his son told him that his unit just received orders to break into a suspected Palestinian terrorist home, something the son had never done before, asked his dad, "What do you want me to do?" He told his son, "Remember that every human being is created in the image of God." Golda Meir was once traveling with a bus of diplomats in Africa that came to the border of white Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. All black diplomats were told they had to leave the bus. Golda left with them. She was the only white person to join the blacks. I love Israel because it was an Arab Supreme Court judge who sent the president of Israel to jail for sexual harassment. Israel is the first country in the world to place a ban on the use of underweight models in fashion shows. A couple of years ago, there was horrible devastation in the Philippines, and Israel's rescue team sought out the most devastated, least accessible place to assist, a place that no other team would dare go. And before treating their first patient, they put a mezuzah. In the middle of the Philippine jungles, they put a mezuzah on the operating room door. On one of my trips to Israel, I met a 3-year-old Syrian boy in an Israeli hospital. where he was being taken care of after a bomb exploded in his home. It nearly killed him, did kill his mother. He was told he was in Syria. He may never know that it was a Jewish doctor who saved him and saved his leg. But he would walk back to Syria on 2 healthy legs because of Israel. There is, by the way, now a petition nominating these Israeli doctor heroes for the Nobel Peace Prize. Israel's Save a Child's Heart organization performs life-saving heart operations for children worldwide, including many Palestinians, free of charge. Israeli banknotes have Braille on them to assist the blind. During the crisis of the Vietnamese boat people, Israel took in more refugees than Canada. During Operation Solomon, Israel transported thousands of Ethiopian Jews to Israel because becoming the first people in human history to take Africans from African slavery into freedom. Years before that stunning operation, the Israelis were negotiating with the Ethiopians to stop a civil war so Israel could get some Jews out. This was at the same time the British were debating whether to allow 100,000 wealthy and healthy people from Hong Kong to immigrate to Britain before China resumed sovereignty there. Israel took a completely different approach. Israel begged the Ethiopians, if you won't let us take all of the Jews out, give us first the old and the sick. Buses around Israel have signs that quote the biblical passage, Lifnei seva takum, you shall rise before the aged and show deference to the old. Israel is the only country in the Middle East where the number of Christians is increasing. A rabbi once met a group of Jews recently let out of the Soviet Union at Ben Gurion Airport. After it seemed everyone was off the plane, 4 Israeli soldiers mysteriously ran onto the plane. No one knew what was going on until minutes later when they came out, gently carrying one old man in their arms. One old man who had nothing of value to contribute to society was welcomed with honor and dignity and carried home by soldiers of the mighty Jewish army. Relative to its population, Israel has absorbed more immigrants than any other country in history, with newcomers coming from over 100 countries. And what does Israel mean to the world? Israel has taught the world about resilience, about undying faith, about the possibility of rebirth. Without these lessons, born out of the ashes of the Holocaust and realized in the birth of the state of Israel, the world would be a much darker, more depressing place. For the last 70 years, in the spiritual subconscious of the world, people know that Israel is proof that it's worthwhile to hope and to dream for a better life. And I believe with all my heart that it is no different today. Israel is a beacon of hope around the world. Rabbi Daniel Hartman has said, you can be a serious Jew outside of Israel, but you can't be a serious Jew without taking Israel seriously. Israel has to become part of your Jewish life. Today, the last Rosh Hashanah, I speak to you as your senior rabbi. I say this to you. I want you to be serious Jews. I want you to connect to Israel and know the stories that have shaped my undying love of Israel. It's not only good for you, but Israel needs you. And I'm not just talking about needing your financial support. It needs your rebuke, your criticism, your exasperation. It needs you to visit. It also needs your understanding, your patience, and your love. Tonight, I'm calling on you to create a more serious Jewish life for yourself by deepening your connection to Israel. I'm calling you to have faith in her, to rediscover and love the story. It's your story.